30-year-old Mica Miller was born March 7, 1994 in Wichita, Kansas. She met her husband, John Paul Miller, pastor of the Solid Rock Church in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina is known for its wide, soft, sandy beaches, mild waves, and beautiful views of the Atlantic Ocean. It's also known as a place filled with top-notch restaurants, dazzling theaters, thrilling attractions, and excellent accommodations. Pretty much a perfect place for love to abound. And so it was in this place that in 2009, John Paul Miller and Mica Miller met when she was allegedly 14 years old. At the time, John Paul Miller was 28 years old, married with 5 children. Mica and John went on to become friends and eventually got married when she was 23 years old in 2017. An obituary for Mica Miller states that Mica was energetic, affirming, adventurous, faithful, loving, forgiving, creative, and so much more. Her family and friends remember her as being a great stepmother, an amazing wife, and someone who loved doing outdoor activities. What was most striking about Mica was her love and devotion to Christ. She was a worship leader and a pastor's assistant. She was known for her love for others, and Mica was also a missionary in Kenya and was still working with pastors in Kenya at the time of her death. There really has been no mention of when things started to go bad between John Paul and Mica Miller, but Mica posted a few videos talking about the abuse she was experiencing, and these videos were made to also strengthen and encourage other Christian women going through abuse and battling with divorcing their husbands. She mentioned in those videos that although God hates divorce, He also hates abuse all at the same time.
Male or female, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what gender you are. Abuse is abuse. And you are the bride of Christ. And my Bible says that He took all the abuse you could think of for you so that you didn't have to live that life of slavery and bondage and pain. Jesus took it all for you. So you don't have to stay in a abusive relationship, whether that's sexual, whether that's somebody forcing you to take illegal drugs, or alcohol abuse, or physical abuse, psychological abuse, making you think that this is all your fault, or you're a bad mom, or you're a bad wife, or you're a bad husband, or you're not giving it your all when you know you are. God hates divorce, but why? According to everybody I've asked and the scriptures that I've found, it's because it hurts people. But does abuse hurt people? How do you think God feels about that?
Her death has captivated a lot of audiences as people, especially friends and family, as well as congregants, are wondering what happened. What is causing this particular shock is the allegation by her husband, John Paul, that she killed herself. Pastor John Paul made this announcement at his church after preaching a sermon in what people are terming as a bizarre announcement.
We're so sorry, we got it wrong. You don't have cancer. Or the lottery. You just won the lottery. Whatever it is, come through. And your relative says, God, this is amazing. Why would you do this for me? And God says, I love you, but I didn't do this for you. You see, 300 years ago, your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents were listening to this tall, charming, humble pastor, and he told them that if they'll give their life to Christ, that God won't just take care of them, He'll take care of the ones that come after Him. And so I love you, but I didn't heal you for your sake. I did it because of a promise I made to them 300 years ago. That's what I want you to leave here with. Okay, that's it. Amen. We're not going to do an altar call today. Instead, I'm going to have you stand up, and I'm going to make an announcement. And after the announcement, I'm going to ask that you leave church quietly and don't talk about the announcement here in the building, please, if you can. So y'all can stand to your feet. Before I make the announcement, I also want to say that my request to you is that you will continue to come to church and serve and give for the next little bit. 'Cause I don't want to I'm taking a little bit of a break, and I don't want to have to worry about the church. My break may be a few days, a few weeks, I don't know. I got a call late last night. My wife has passed away, and it was self-induced, and it was up in North Carolina, and we're gonna have a funeral for her next Sunday here at 3 p.m. And so it's all I can. I'm just kind of going on adrenaline right now. So y'all pray for me and my kids and everybody. And she wasn't. Y'all knew that she wasn't well mentally, and that she needed her medicine that was hard to get to her. And so I'm sure there'll be more details to come. But just keep our family in your prayers. And I'm going to let Pastor Randall, my bishop, he can pray. I'll get him a microphone. He'll pray out. And if you have anything you want to share as well, I appreciate it.
Come on, let's.
Mica's body was found to have suffered a fatal gunshot wound to the head at Lumber River State Park in Lumberton, North Carolina, about an hour's drive from the Miller's hometown of Myrtle Beach, according to a local newspaper, the Robertsonian. As you heard in the video, Pastor John Paul Miller mentioned that he got a call late the night before that his wife had passed away. Although police had not ruled the death as suicide, he went on to say it was self-induced and happened up in North Carolina, before sharing the details of her planned memorial service that took place today, May 5th. Hearing him say, "You all knew she wasn't well mentally and she needed medicine that was hard to get to her. I'm sure there will be more details to come," really left people confused because, on the contrary, Mica was always known for being happy and loving. Friends and family urged police to look deeply into this matter, and the police have opened up an investigation. Major Damian McLean told reporters that the Robertson County Sheriff's Office was opening an investigation to the April 27th shooting, and that officers were in the process of gathering information from people in South and North Carolina. Pastor John Miller claimed he spent every night together with Mica, talking for hours, just talking.
She was probably the greatest wife anyone could ask for. She was incredibly affirming. We spent every night together for hours, just talking.
Pastor John Miller claimed he spent every night together with Mica, talking for hours, just talking. But Mica Miller did file for divorce in October 2003. The case was dismissed in February 2024, but a few days later, Pastor John Miller then filed for separate support and maintenance, seeking financial support from Mica as the couple was still legally married. In April, Mica then also filed her own separate support and maintenance, with the hearing scheduled for June 5th. So this back and forth left people wondering if they were getting along. So I guess when Pastor John Paul Miller says they spoke every night, talking for hours, people find this questionable. People question this also because it appears the pastor was allegedly moving on, though still legally married to Mica. Robbie Harvey, an internet sleuth, dug into the case and discovered the alleged relationship. He said Pastor John Paul and his wife Mica had been separated long enough for Paul Miller to have a girlfriend. Her name is Susie Skinner, and they've been dating for a while. Susie Skinner herself is a woman who is not free from controversy, as sources say her own husband, Chris Skinner, who got paralyzed after a wheelchair accident 20 years prior to his death, drowned in a community pool in 2021. It was, however, ruled an accidental drowning. Meanwhile, John Paul claims that his wife died by suicide, saying she struggled with mental illness, which really could be the case, but people are just not seeing this as a clear-cut case of mental health issues.
This has to be at least looked into deeply. There's got to be some accountability here because it's a tragic life was lost, and it's not just as simple as somebody had some mental issue.
It was evident that she was going through a hard time. but she seemed to be hanging in there. She had stepped back a bit due to all the issues in her marriage and abuse that she was enduring, but she was glad for having a strong family support and great friends to stand by her.
Life's been kind of crazy the couple past weeks, months, years, but I've kind of had to keep my circle really small for the past couple weeks, just because I'm going through a lot and it's hard, and it's my cross to bear. It's the thing that God has put in my life to deal with, and I don't want to bring a lot of people into it. I'm so thankful to God for a strong family and the friends that God has put in my life to be there for me at this time.
Mica said the two had been on the rocks, saying Mica was God-fearing, joyful, loving woman who did not deserve the abuse she endured. If you hear anything from anyone other than her family, please question it and reach out to her siblings. And I can only imagine she's referring to the allegations that her death was a result of a suicide. Mica's last Facebook posts include her smiling in a selfie, along with a caption that reads, "When terrible, 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 terrible things happen to you, y'all know what I'm talking about. Rest in peace, Faith." Mica's death has rocked the Myrtle Beach community, and her family and friends have been sharing posts on social media with the hashtag Justice for Mica. People took to the streets to protest against domestic violence on May 5th, which is the day that she had her memorial. One of Mica's friends wrote on Facebook that, "I talked to her multiple times in her final week here on earth. She was making plans to get her hair cut, getting help with her car payment because she was a little short after paying her divorce lawyer, and planning to meet us for the second service on Sunday. My final text with her on Friday was at 9:19 p.m. and it was with a woman making plans to leave. So what happened between Friday night and Saturday?" So family and friends are really just trying to figure it out. The timeline of events, according to Robbie Harvey, are as follows. February 4th, Pastor John Paul preaches a sermon on Korah and Moses and how it's wrong to rise against religious leaders. On February 23rd, Pastor John Paul files for spousal support. On February 25th, in another sermon to his congregation, Pastor John Paul says a mentally ill person doesn't know they're sick. If you have to trust people around you, the thing that's sick is your mind, and your mind is what you need to realize that you're sick. On March 10th, Pastor John Paul preaches a sermon and reveals he went through 2 years of messages on his wife's phone. He found that 18 people reached out saying to her, "If you ever want to talk about your husband, you can talk to me and I'll keep it confidential." Visibly upset, the pastor followed up with, "That's a demon talking." The same March 10th, Pastor John Paul says to his congregation, "One thing I'm going to preach about is getting rich, strong, healthy, and finding a hot wife that loves Jesus while wearing his wedding ring." The same March 10th, Pastor John Paul tells his congregation that his wife was in the hospital, and as soon as she got out, she left him. She gets out and she leaves, just completely leaves me, leaves everything, drains the bank account, and just goes. Guess what? While you're talking bad about me out there, I'm building a school in Africa for over 100 kids to be able to be fed.
Last year, my wife, they went to Africa, had a wonderful trip, amazing trip, and she came back with the idea to start a school in Africa. And 6 weeks ago, she goes in the hospital, gets out, and just leaves. Just completely leaves me, leaves everything, drains the bank account, and goes. And guess what? While you're talking bad about me out there, I'm building a school in Africa for over 100 kids to be able to be fed. I'm just doing that. It's always about what I'm preaching about. God is so good to do that every single time. One day I'm going to preach about getting rich, strong, healthy, and finding a hot wife that loves Jesus. That's what I'm going to do. There's a really weird idea that a lot of women have. It's so weird that women have this. Christian women think, well, I need somebody to talk to about these people that hurt me. I need somebody to talk to. Oh, you just want to talk about somebody else. That's a demon actually right there. When my wife went in the hospital, I looked at her phone and I counted over the past 2 years, 18 people who had texted her and said, if you ever want to talk about your husband, you can talk to me and say anything and I'll keep it confidential.
On March 17th, Pastor John Paul tells the story of a pastor whose wife left him for a member of his staff. The pastor had to hire a third-party company to find her. Once he found her, divorce papers were drawn up. When the time came to sign the papers, the pastor couldn't do it because Bible says divorce is wrong, and if she wanted out, she would have to leave him. March 12th, Pastor John Paul's request for spousal support was dismissed, and there is no explanation as to why it was dismissed. On March 17th, in a Facebook post made by Mica's sister, Sierra Francis, says she keeps an eye on her phone for fear of my sister's safety due to others' behaviors towards her. She goes on to mention the sermon from March 17th and calls out the congregation of Solid Rock Church. March 18th, Mica posts a video encouraging others, saying, I'm just making sure my heart doesn't have any unforgiveness, bitterness, resentment, just forgiveness and hope for the future and peace. March 22nd, Mica posts another video suggesting she was being abused physically and mentally. She also says God hates divorce, but how does God feel about abuse? She also suggests her husband forced her to take illegal drugs. On April 16th, Mica files for spousal support. On April 23rd, a hearing notice was sent out for Mica's request. A court date for June 5th was set. On April 27th, Mica Miller is found dead. On April 28th, Pastor John Paul announces to his congregation at the end of service that his wife was dead and it was self-induced. He also reminds the congregation of a mental illness. The same April 28th, Mica's sister, Sierra Francis, posts on Facebook saying, don't listen to the false stories being told about her, meaning Mica. And then on March 2nd, in an interview with ABC 15, Pastor John Paul Miller says, she was probably the greatest wife anyone could ask for. He also once again points out her mental illness. So this is Mica's timeline as detailed by Robbie Harvey. At this point, this is an ongoing investigation, and both Mica and Pastor John Paul Miller deserve justice one way or the other. If Pastor John Paul Miller is innocent, then this investigation will prove him so. But if he is indeed guilty, then Mica's killer has to be found. Please keep the family in your prayers. This must be an incredibly painful time for them. Grieving is a hard process, but having to do it publicly, it must truly be excruciating for them. So let's keep in mind that everything is alleged, and at times suspicious husbands have been found to be innocent. So let's just pray for Mica's family and keep them in our prayers. Mica is survived by her husband, her mother, her father, her siblings, and her stepchildren. On her Facebook page, Mica displayed a Bible verse, Micah 6 verse 8, which says, seek justice, love mercy, walk humbly with your God. Something that we all wish for Mica, for her to receive justice and not let her death be in vain. Thank you so much for taking time to listen to this sad, tragic story. And if there's anything that I say that was inaccurate, please feel free to contact me and I'll be glad to correct it. I'll talk to you in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye-bye.